Chair Marconte is unable to join us right at 5:30. She'll be here as soon as she can. And I also want to recognize that Commissioner Farr is online. Commissioner, we see you. Can you hear us okay?
Affirmative. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and we can hear you as well. Okay, so first order of business is public comment. So is there anybody in the room wishing to provide public comment? Is there anybody online? Okay, great. Moving on. Let's see. Now it's to committee business. So we were emailed, and then at our places tonight were 2 sets of minutes. The first from Tuesday, May 13th. I noted that we needed to confirm that that's done. That's been done. Great. Wonderful. So then I will entertain a motion or
I'm happy
conversation.
To move, but I do have a correction. Do you want that after
Please.
a motion
No,
and have discussion too? On page 2 of the minutes for the 13th, in the second paragraph down where it says I followed up and asked about the WIOA grant, and it says it highlighted it was awarded to a national for-profile company. That should be multinational, not-for-profit company.
Not-for-profit.
Non-profit, not-for-profit. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Any other? Sorry, I interrupted you.
With that correction, I'm happy to make a motion to approve as corrected.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Or affirmative.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, those meeting minutes are approved. So moving on to the May 15th minutes, were there any corrections or clarifications needed? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to.
Move to approve the May 15th minutes, 2025.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Lovell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who wants it?
I get it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Or
opposed?
votes yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Motion passes. Okay. Mr. Mokrzycki, you wanted to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We're, and committee members, we're about an hour ahead of schedule, so I thought I would take that time and fill it for you.
All of it.
I will not take all of that time. I did want to just do a brief recap, if that's all right. And first, to thank all of you for your service over the last several weeks as members of the Budget Committee, particularly our volunteer appointed members of the Budget Committee who dedicate your time and serve as a voice of the people in this process. I love this Budget Committee process that we have here in Oregon that combines our elected policymakers, our Board of Commissioners, along with 5 residents in the community that sit together and review all of this really complex, challenging information, try to make sense of it, and also ask good questions and help steer Lane County in the work that we do and the services that we provide. So thank you all for your service, for your thoughtfulness. I'm also always, every year, very impressed by the how thoughtful, straightforward, and efficient this budget process is here in Lane County, despite the challenges that we face seemingly every year. I also want to thank our staff. I want to thank Christine Moody and Jennifer and Jason and the budget team, the central office budget team, who have spent countless hours in developing this budget, and they're really a rock star team. Very small, but very mighty. As well as the folks who are here in the audience, our department leadership and staff, and all of the leadership and staff across our departments, and in particular the financial budget and financial planning staff within each of our departments that do so much of this preparation work to make our budget process and documents successful. So I just want to recap a few things that we talked about on opening night for the budget kickoff, and share a little bit of additional context and information with you as you move forward to approve the budget tonight, and we move forward to continue to solve challenges outside of this meeting to meet the funding challenges and service challenges that we have here in Lane County. As we talked about on the throughout this budget process, we've had a lot of uncertainty both in terms of our local funding challenges, the state legislative process and funding at the state level, and of course, with our federal government, significant uncertainty in funding from the federal government that we have seen and continue to see. We in this proposed budget, have the largest reduction in positions, in full-time equivalent positions that we've had in over a decade. That's been a really challenging process, but I've been very pleased and proud of our team here in Lane County and the diligent work that we have done as a team to identify reductions in expenses, needed reductions in expenses to get our budget in line without hugely impacting our services. There will be impacts. There will be impacts from the reductions that are being made here, but I believe that we've done the best that we can to minimize the impacts, particularly to the people that we employ and the people that we serve in our community. We've talked about how we've really approached this budget as a surgical process, not a an axe or a chainsaw to the bureaucracy, but really surgically identifying those places that we can make reductions that balance the budget, but also preserve services. We started this process earlier than normal, so typically we will kick off with our leadership team meeting in January. We did that, but we had already started reviewing central service budgets and operations back in October, because we had this very collaborative and engaging process that I think resulted in the recommendations, the good recommendations that are in front of you. In this budget, there are a couple of new initiatives, and those include additional funding, one-time and ongoing opioid funding, dedication of opioid funding for our Lane Stabilization Center, one of our Board of Commissioners' top priorities, and of course the communities, one of the community's top priorities. So we continue to advance that work, and then the creation of our Housing Land Bank, another top priority of our Board of Commissioners and of our community, to find ways that we can leverage the expertise of the government and pair that in partnership with the expertise and capabilities of the private development community to enhance workforce housing in particular in our community. So in a nutshell, that is what our budget seeks to do. We have talked throughout this process that there are really two financial struggles that we face in Lane County. The first is that our expenses continue to outpace our revenues. The money going out the door is leaving us faster than the money coming in the door. That's what creates our structural imbalance. That's driven largely by stagnant growth in revenues, around 3 to 4% growth in revenues, and higher than we're able to handle growth in expenses that are creeping upwards of 6, 7, 8%. So that gap between revenues and expenses is what creates the annual structural imbalance. That is a very similar problem to the challenge that cities and counties in Oregon and across the country are facing. So we're not unique in that regard of revenues growing more slow than expenses. So what we're doing to continue to manage that and identify these ways in which we can make those reductions is at least the challenge we're facing is similar. We've tried to approach it from a very surgical perspective. What's unique about Lane County is this artificially low property tax rate. And we say that I don't use that language, artificially low property tax rate, loosely, because I feel like that's pretty strong language to say that, well, that's a subjective statement to say that it's artificially low. It's artificially low based on the data. We've taken a little bit of time here as we've been through, our budget team and I have taken some time in the last couple weeks as we've worked through this budget process to further analyze the property tax rates within our comparable counties in Oregon, as well as the comparable cities in Oregon. So if you're looking at cities and counties, and then to also understand what the impact is, the property tax burden is on taxpayers within these various jurisdictions. So I want to briefly paint that picture in a slightly different way than I think we presented it to you in the past. And this is, again, hopefully to open up a continued conversation, not just with the 10 of you and those watching, but our broader community. So if we look at Lane County and our $1.28 permanent rate, and we add on top of that the two levies that we have, a public safety levy and a parks levy, our effective rate is approximately $2. Okay, that's, if you take those two 5-year levies that we have effectively a $2 property tax rate for Lane County. If you take Washington, Clackamas, Marion, Jackson, and Deschutes, and we'll leave Multnomah County out of this for the purposes of county comparables, because that would further exacerbate the challenge, but we will include the city of Portland when we tell you about the cities. So if you include those 5 county comparables, and you take not just their permanent rates, which is what we show you every year, right? We showed you that at the beginning of this process, that disparity. But you actually include the levy rates and the debt rates and the total property tax rates, including all of those permanent and temporary rates that those counties have. The average county rate with the levies, not including Multnomah, is $3.20. So the disparity, this is trying to create an apples to apples between counties, between like counties in Oregon that have similar population, similar tax base, a mix of urban and rural. We have a $1.20 difference between Lane County's property tax rate, including levies, and the average of those 5 others, not including Multnomah. That's 37% lower than the average. So Lane County's property tax rate, the rate at which we, and of course you can look at our assessed values, which are in some, in Washington County, they have twice the assessed value that we have here in Lane County. In Clackamas County, trying to do this, actually that's not true at all. Where am I looking? Property tax net assessed. They have twice, they have 20 million more in Clackamas, and then slightly less in Marion, Jackson, and Deschutes. So, but they're all sort of, all the other data, is relatively similar, except for the difference in the rate. 37% below property tax rate for Lane County compared to those 5. Conversely, if you look at the cities within each of those 5 comparables, and our largest city, Eugene, and in this case, we'll include the city of Portland because it actually makes the average look higher. The average among the cities, not including Eugene, in the same scenario, if we include the permanent rates and the levy rates and the debt rates and all of those things. So the maximum amount collected by those cities. The average property tax rate collected or levied is $5 for Hillsborough, Lake Oswego, Salem, Medford, and Bend, for those 5 comparable counties, and Portland. So include Portland in that, because Portland actually raises that average. They're at $5.78 with all of theirs. So they bring that average up because the average is $5. Does that make sense? So $5 is the average for all of those cities, including Portland. The city of Eugene's total in Lane County, total permanent rate and levy rate is $7.87. So there's a $2.87 difference greater, right? Between our largest city and the average of the other cities. Interestingly, 37% higher than the average. Does that make sense? This isn't to create a conflict. It's simply to point out a fact that part of, and then we can look at the average tax rate within each of these counties, right? Which is from the taxpayer's perspective. What does the taxpayer actually pay? Because they don't just pay the city rate and the county rate. They also pay the school district rates and the fire rates and the library levy and all those things, right? So Lane County in that scenario is the 3rd lowest total tax burden based on our calculation. Jackson is the lowest, and Deschutes is the 2nd lowest, and Lane County is, and the number shifted a little bit, but I think Jackson is around $15 in terms of total, all of those rates. Deschutes is over 16, and then 16 and change, and Lane County is 1653. And then when you get to Marion is 1692, Clackamas is 1754, Washington is 1765, and Multnomah is 2380. So Multnomah has the largest property tax burden of, at least of those county comparables. But important just, I think, for us to, we're going to continue coming every year, and just as every government will, and we will struggle with these challenges of getting our expenses in line with our revenues. And that's the work we have to do in government, to find out how do we balance our budget with the resources that we have and still maintain the value to the community that we can provide. In Lane County, the challenge is we have cut so far that you heard from the district attorney. They're running the risk of not being able to provide, I mean, they already are in some ways, but the caseloads are unmanageable. You've heard from the sheriff's office and the utter lack of patrols that we're able to provide in our rural communities. We have no traffic team in Lane County. We can't respond in the ways that we really should be to our residents throughout Lane County because of those issues. From our assessor, who doesn't have the staff to be able to go out and do all of the reappraisals that would actually add value to the rolls, right? And benefit all of the taxing jurisdictions, the cities, the schools, the fire districts, and the county. We can't do that because we don't have the base level rate. Our rate is 37% lower than the average of all the others. So it's it's just something, I've been here for 11 years, and every way we try to slice this and go around it and find a way to the solution, we are able to nibble around the edges. We're able to add a DA in a year where we're in a good spot, or we add a couple deputies for rural patrol when we find some, we get some one-time SRS funding, and we're able to do that for a minute. And then that funding dries up, or we hit a downslope, and we have to take that away. And so it's in some ways one step forward, 2 steps back. And we're not going to be able to fix this fundamental problem that we have until we address the revenue side of the equation. So that was a lot, and it wasn't an uplifting message, but it is a call to action for all of us to start talking about this maybe in a different way, understanding the impact that our residents face, the challenges that, our residents aren't asking to pay more taxes in a lot of cases. But we have seen that our residents are willing to talk about the value of services and matching, a price point with a value that they want to see in their services. So this is the conversation. The board is going to have a presentation from the Public Safety Funding Task Force on June 24th. That task force of 11 residents in Lane County, geographically spread out throughout Lane County. Again, as we shared, Lane County is 4,620 miles. By far the largest the most mileage of any of these counties that we referenced. I think in the opening night I said we could put Washington, Clackamas, and Marion all in Lane. You could carve them out on a map, place them in Lane County, and you'd still have over 1,000 square miles to put another county, right? It's just, when you think about the scale, the geographic size, and the challenge and the complexity of the sheriff's office having to patrol that geographic area. Think about our search and rescue staff and volunteers that go out into these really dangerous places to help rescue people, many of whom live in our cities, right? And go into the unincorporated areas and take advantage of the wonderful recreation. But then our sheriff's office and our volunteers through SAR are the ones that go and get people when they really need it. So the services we provide are absolutely critical to the lives, and it doesn't matter if you live in a city or a county. These issues around public safety and the entire public safety system cross jurisdictional boundaries, right? They don't know a city boundary or a county boundary. The services all overlap, and we're not investing as a community in the level of public safety services that our residents need and deserve. So we need to move the needle on that issue, and I wanted to present that again in a slightly different context, because that is as much work as we do, and you hear from all the departments and the challenges and the great work that they're doing with the limited resources that they have. I will say, if there's anything we should be proud of, it is the incredible value that our people in Lane County are able to deliver for the small amount of property tax revenue that we use to deliver it. We leverage a lot of state and federal dollars, and we scrape out as much value out of the little bit of property tax revenue that we collect to provide the needs of our community. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer questions, and thank you, Chair, for giving me that time to share that context.
Absolutely, appreciate it. Any questions for Mr. Milkowski? Seeing none, okay. Any additional committee business we need to attend to? Seeing none, okay. Great. Well, that moves us into Budget Committee discussion and deliberation. So there were some materials at our chairs when we got here tonight. Well, is there any general discussion that we need to throw out there before we move into the checklist? Seeing none, okay. So, as I've learned, we need to see if we have 4 votes interested in moving this proposal by Commissioner Trieger forward. Commissioner, do you want an opportunity to speak to your proposal?
I'm happy to do that now, or wait, if it would be useful for people to decide whether they want to advance it for discussion, I can give a little background now, otherwise, yeah.
Please do.
Okay, great. So for those that may not know, this is a fund that each commissioner has at their disposal and discretion. There is a collective commissioner fund for things that covers costs for things that we do on behalf of the board, even if we do them individually, like attending conferences. It covers conference registration and travel and so on. So like our Association of Oregon Counties Conference, or a National Association of Counties, or United Front Trip Fund that funds that. But these are individual office budgets of discretionary dollars. And historically, way back in the day, there was a little bit of that used for staffing in the cuts that we experienced in 2012, I think it was. That was drastically reduced. And so I went back and with Christine and staff's help got some historical data. And it is that until fiscal year 1920, when we were increased to the current $15,000 per commissioner, each office had a $4,000 discretionary budget, which is still enough to cover things like our individual, if we have a county cell phone or iPad, comes out of that, or conferences we want to attend as our own professional development or interests. Some of us use them for things like buying tickets to events that nonprofits host and so on. So that amount was bumped from 4,000 to the current 15, with the idea that it would help commissioners who wanted to use it to bring on a 520 support staff and up to 10 hours a week support staff. And some of us have used that, some have not, with varying success. But for the most part, each of us vastly underspends that account year by year. And I thought that really this was recognizing that all the programs that are using general fund were asked to present cuts. And this was an opportunity for commissioners to demonstrate sort of some shared commitment to that pain that the organization is feeling. And so overall, I wanted to present an idea to reduce that budget, and I came up with the amount of $5,000 because it's still $1,000 over what it was when that significant increase to help with staffing support happened in 1920. And so it still gives us enough.
1920?
2019, 2020.
Oh,
Fiscal year
Okay.
1920.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that was a big chunk back then.
Skiddly dee, skinnamarink-a-dink, 1920.
Dash in there, you know. 19-20.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fiscal year 19.
That makes sense.
20. So this is still enough to cover, the cost of doing business for each individual commissioner office, a little above what it was at the time, but doesn't allow for that larger chunk for any potential staffing. So that was the justification behind the reason for proposing the cut at all and the amount.
Thank you. Any questions?
I think we take it forward to the floor before you.
Okay. Thank you. This is why we appreciate your institutional knowledge on this committee. And let the record show that the chair has joined us. Would you like to take the gavel, please?
Thank you, Vice Chair Means. Hello, everyone. So it sounds like we're looking for a vote of 4 to move on to discussion for this agenda item. Can I get a show of hands, please? Okay. 4, I guess. Okay, thank you. So we will move this to discussion. And I believe Commissioner Trieger, you were giving kind of background.
Yeah.
You switch screens on you.
You did switch screen.
Yes.
Any further discussion on this item? Commissioner Seneca?
I appreciate your thoughts there, Commissioner Trieger. The one thing I would like to mention as a more rural district, I've found these funds to be very helpful in supporting our small communities. I mean, I helped Mapleton School with their well when the waters were down and those kind of things. And we're not always nimble at the county level. There's a lot of red tape, and this allows us to react pretty quick. I've helped some small districts just by tools that I was allowed to go out and do. You're right. Usually it's underspent. Like I checked. I've spent $3,000 out of it this year. But I do like having that reserve if something were to happen. And if Christine, maybe you could help me. If we don't spend those funds, they'll go back into the general fund the next year.
Correct, yes.
So it's kind of just like a reserve sitting there. I'm in favor of keeping it personally, as there's a lot of little needs in my district, and I appreciate those funds being available when and if they're needed. That's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. I think I was one that was advocated for the increase back when that occurred, largely because I really wanted to hire an intern to assist with all the emails and calls that we get. What I've learned over the years is that the amount wasn't enough to really keep somebody consistently who was knowledgeable enough to be able to handle those duties. And interns change over year after year, and so it takes a lot of effort actually to retrain somebody every year. By the time they're trained, they're almost graduated. So what we really needed was some permanent assistants. But the intern just, although I love to be able to have that opportunity for people, didn't feel very viable. And I don't want to have an intern without paying them at least minimum wage. And this just wasn't really going to provide enough assistance for it to make sense for the intern and to make sense for the needs I need in my office. So I too, underspent. I know I have at least 9,000 of it left. And it does revert back into the general fund. And that's fine if that occurs. Some commissioners try to spend it out before the end of the fiscal year, and donate it to causes that they prefer, to support, which is also fine. So in one sense, I can understand bringing it back to $5,000. I'd be fine with that. But if there are other more effective ways to actually provide some administrative assistance to the Board of Commissioners for helping with those phone calls and literally hundreds of emails that come in, I think that would be of greater impact for what we do and what this was originally meant for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lovell?
Thank you, Chair. I think this, I'm kind of aligning more with Commissioner Senega on this issue. I think this is a story about stewardship when really it comes down to it. I was told as a kid there was a landowner one time that gave 3 different people 3 different amounts of money, one very large amount, one kind of a medium amount, one kind of a small amount. Then he went away for a long trip and came back and wanted to know what the people did with the funds that he gave them. And 2 of the people, the one that had a large and a medium amount, did very well with it. They doubled their amount and invested it well and stewarded it well. The one that he gave the least amount to didn't steward it at all and gave the money back and was reprimanded for not being a person who was a good steward or an investor in what he knew what the community needed. So to me, I think these funds are a direct reflection about how the commissioner is involved not only in their district, but also understands specific needs of the district that could multiply in a fashion more so than going through the process of a board order and staff research and getting 3 votes and all this. These office accounts are just that. The fact that Commissioner Trieger brings up that there was a sense that there was a portion of that was for some help, about $3,000, which is partly true on that, which leaves us about $12,000 for us to invest in some of the things that are going on within our district. Let me just give you some of the items, and obviously I would like to keep most of this under wraps, but I think for this particular illustration, the public needs to know what I've personally did with the funds. I invested a couple $1,000s last year in the Springfield Police Department's drone program. They needed some extra funds to buy a few extra drones that could go inside houses when they had an armed siege, so that would save the lives of the police officers. So we invested that program and bought them some drones. And just a month or so ago, they had an armed suspect in a house, barred himself in there. They flew a drone in there, not only saved lives of officers, but also saved the person inside with the firearms. So I thought that was a worthwhile investment. I think that is an investment that's going to continue to pay dividends over time as it goes forward. Also, the Springfield Block Party is an event now that's garnering 10,000 people, 10,000 visitors in the fall. It's a celebration of business and economic development in my district, and I think that's a worthwhile investment to make. That small investment of $2,000 takes that program and enables it to close Main Street, which enables it to attract the large amount of people that it does. it puts Springfield on the map, and it's made a huge economic boom to the downtown core. So I think those $2,000 have multiplied themselves over and over again. The mariachi band in Springfield High School needed new uniforms to go and play in a Washington DC parade last year, and they were short about $1,500 from giving those funds. When I called Springfield High School, the principal, he told me about this particular deficit, and I was able to fund that directly and instantaneously so that these students, mostly of them immigrants and Hispanics that make instruments, and they have this great band program at Springfield. They were able to have new uniforms to go to DC. There's countless other things that I've done this for. The Kinkle Scholarship Program that helps fund immigrant students bridge the gap in their education funds. These funds, in my mind, are vital for a commissioner to invest in things that would just give a little boost in their community that would multiply those results inexplicably. So I think if you want a real true character test on what each commissioner does, if the budget was up to him directly, give them those funds and see what they do for him year to year. Like Commissioner Senega said, we may not use all of them, but the way we do use them is for the most good for the community, and I think they should stay the way they are. Thank you, Chair.
We had Commissioner,
I
sure.
just want to offer clarification
Commissioner
whenever
Trieger.
you're.
Sure, Commissioner Trieger.
Just to clarify, because the numbers that Commissioner Lovall just said, the funds used to be at 4,000 per commissioner. They went up to 15,000, and I'm proposing they go down to 5. So just to make clear, because you said $3,000, and that was not an
No, I said
accurate amount
$3,000
of-
was for that, originally was for just a portion
No,
that we had funds that we could share with a staff person. That's what was told to me by staff. So there was 12,000 left.
There's some confusion, but actually, it went from 4 to 15 with the idea that the increase would allow for a 10-hour-a-week or 520 position. So it was actually that $11,000 increase in theory in 2019-20 that was designated for administrative or staff support or internship support,
Okay.
not 3.
Web for 1920. Check it out.
I believe we have Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be a little briefer than others. I'm in favor of keeping it for a few reasons. In the past, I've used mine to offset a budget committee request for River Road neighbors to help fund their newsletter. Recently, I provided $5,000 to United Way for a youth summit that they otherwise would have had difficulty putting on. And earlier this year, I provided to the National Alliance on Mental Illness an opportunity for them to do pretty significant repairs to their main facility in Springfield. So I think it is an opportunity to, outside of the budget process, to help agencies around town who otherwise may not have the ability to raise the funds to leverage other funds to do their work. So I'm in favor of keeping it at this point in time. Which is kind of interesting because initially, when this was first proposed, I was against it because I did not feel the need for to try to pay staff or interns. I've had interns work in my office at for no pay at all and do significant amounts of work. So, but as we move down the road and as we have used it, most often I send money back. That I've given money to Blacks in Education Foundation and other foundations that once again would not be able to fulfill the mission if not for small donations that help other donations trickle in. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Farr. Other comments?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Farr. You and I have had previous discussions in this committee about the River Road situation, and I've always felt that it needed a home, and it looks like you found one for that purpose, and I appreciate that. So I think that is one of those things that there are special things that come up that are serving people's districts, and I'm glad that this has been used in the past to support that.
Any additional comments? Quick process question, since I'm hopping into this. Are we voting on this now, or do we move to the additional items?
You would if you get a motion.
Okay.
To, yes. Yeah.
So I would entertain a motion. Okay. So then we will move to the next items. And I have item 2, discussion of issues brought to the table. It looks like we can move on to the third. Okay. And so we have a slate of additions and reductions and technical adjustments to the budget. You all have in front of you and up on the screen. Shall we move through each one and take a vote on each one, or do we want to do this as a full slate?
That is committee choice.
Chair, I recommend, we've discussed all of these, and I think if you could ask the committee, I mean, if we review them as a whole and ask questions as a whole, I think that would be sufficient.
Thank you. We have received all of these in writing, in memos, in our materials. Are there any questions or discussion from the committee at this time? Entertain a motion from the group. Commissioner Lovell?
Sure, thank you. I'd like to move approval of the additions and reductions and technical adjustments to the fiscal year 25-26 budget as presented, please.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Thank you. So now we will move to
Yes, we'll bring up the motions for you here on the screen. I think Jennifer's switching to a Word document. Oh.
while
And
we're
I think it's just general discussion, whatever the committee wants to have, general discussion. And then we have the list of motions when you're ready for those, kind of typed out for you. So it's easy to read the different things like the tax levies.
While we're pulling those up, I would just like to express gratitude to the budget team, the whole county team in general, just for this process. I think this year has been particularly challenging with all of the uncertainties at the federal level and with funding sources, and I just want to commend the group. In each of our work sessions, we heard, I think, across the board about collaboration that existed across teams within the county, a commitment to keeping people, both the people that the county employs and serves, at the center of these really difficult decisions, and at a time when personnel costs are going up, materials and supply costs are going up, and then the commitment to using sort of a scalpel precise approach to finding ways to find solutions. So just want to commend the entire group for the work. I think it's really incredible. So with that, I will open it to other comments, questions, discussion about the budget before us today. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. I just have to make my annual disclosure is included in this budget is potential funding for various entities in social services. And so I always do my potential conflict of interest statement, knowing that some funds in Health and Human Services may go to St. Vincent de Paul of Lane County. I am related to the Executive Director Emeritus of that particular agency who's still employed. I have recused myself from each and every individual vote on that particular item. So I do not believe that this is an actual conflict of interest, and I will continue on with the budget review and approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck. Commissioner Farr?
Thank you, Chair. I know that I'm not the only one in this room who laments tremendously the presentations by the sheriff and the DA, which underline the drastic underfunding that we are in regarding public safety in Lane County. This budget does nothing to address that. But that being said, once again, I don't believe I'm the only one in this room today that laments the fact that we do not need to do more for public safety. In fact, in a report that I cited this morning by U.S. News and World Report, which has Oregon ranked as the 35th best state to live in, 35th out of 50, we're ranked as the 47th in public safety. So that's a pretty sad place to be in the state of Oregon. And here in Lane County, with our lower budgets, we're probably ranked even lower than that. Consequently, that is absolutely essential that we pay very close attention to the report that's going to be given to us next month by the Public Safety Funding Committee. And while they may not have a specific recommendation, we have to view this as a starting point for our work to fund sustainably our public safety efforts in Lane County.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments or discussion from the committee? right. Are we ready to move to our motions? Right.
Chair, I'll take motion one. I move approval of the fiscal year 2025-2026 Lane County permanent tax rate of $1.2793 per 100,000 of assessed value.
1,000.
Or 1,000. I never get this right. Yes.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Farr is aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Motion two, it's on the local option tax to maintain jail and youth treatment beds. Commissioner Buck.
I'll take motion 2. So I move approval of the fiscal year 2025, 2026 local option tax to maintain jail and youth treatment beds in the amount of 55 cents per 1,000 assessed value, with 50 cents for jail services and 5 cents for youth services.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Farr votes aye.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. And so next up, we have motion three, the local option tax to support 4-H and OSU extension programs in Lane County.
I move that we approve the fiscal year 2025-2026 local option tax to support 4-H and OSU extension programs in Lane County in the amount of .028 cents per 1,000 assessed value.
Farr seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries.
My turn for motion 4, if you can hear me.
Okay, motion 4.
Move approval of the fiscal year 2025-2026 local option tax to fund Lane County parks in the amount of 16 cents per 1,000 assessed value.
Thank you. Second, thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Farr votes aye.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. Now on to motion 5. It's the use of the transient room tax for operational purposes. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Lovell?
Sure, thank you. I'll move to approve and allow the use of transient room tax dollars for operational purposes consistent with Lane County Code 4.005.175F through H and ORS 320.350 as follows. The Lane Event Center in the amount of $1,866,516. Lane County Parks Division, $851,825.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Farr votes aye.
Carries unanimously. And to our last motion, it's the approval of the entire 25-26 budget.
Chair, I move approval of the entire FY 2025-2026 budget with all adjustments approved by the Budget Committee.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Commissioner Buck. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Farr votes aye.
Unanimously approved. Thank you all very much. And with that, I believe we have done our work here. So I believe that our meeting is adjourned at 6:16. Thank you all very much.
Au revoir.